Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored by the invitation to participate in the Personal Information Security Fair today. I must share with you at the beginning that I have very good mood this morning. Sun shining, beautiful place. I have never been in Korea, so this is the first time, and I'm really delighted to be here. And first of all, I had a very good, pleasant and productive meetings with Mr. Prime Minister Lee and with Madam Minister of Foreign Affairs Kang. And we discussed about important things which are relevant to data privacy and the IT sector. And I am sure, not only after this morning debates, that the EU and Korea share common values with respect to data protection, but also face common challenges, not the least when it comes to data security. Let me thank Mr. Lee Hyo-song for inviting me to this event. When he told me that there will be 1,500 participants, I thought he was exaggerating, and I now see it's true. So thank you for coming and thank you for listening. I was listening patiently the speech of Mr. Lee Hyo-song, and I understood only two words, Beráyorová and GDPR. And through GDPR, it sounded to me that I understand a little bit Korean. And of course, GDPR is the abbreviation, the acronym of the General Data Protection Regulation, which is the new EU regulation which entered into application exactly 1 week ago on the 25th of May. And this day certainly did not go unnoticed. I learned, for example, that last week the GDPR had more hits on Google than Beyoncé. And this clearly shows that there is a wide interest when it comes to privacy and data protection, not only among experts, but among real people. For the EU, the 25th of May marks the completion of a process of intensive debate and reflection on how to best protect our citizens' personal data, and also how to balance this with the legitimate interests of businesses. Now, many of you in the audience do business in Europe or with European partners. And I am sure the question you have asked yourself is, do we have to comply with the GDPR? And my answer is yes, if you target individual customers in the EU market. At the same time, GDPR offers important benefits for businesses, for both European and foreign. For instance, the harmonization and simplification brought about by the GDPR will make life much easier for companies, as they will now have only to deal with one set of rules. They will also benefit from reduced compliance costs and flexible tools to meet their obligations. Let me remind you of the fact that even on the 24th May last week, the companies doing business in the EU had to comply with 28 different data protection regimes. Now we have one common set of rules, and this is a real revolution. The importance of having strong data protection frameworks has once again been highlighted by the recent Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal. Like a magnifying glass, these abuses focus our attention on some core challenges that we face today when we think about the protection of personal data. Many important questions. For instance, how do we ensure that individuals are informed about what happens to their data? What are business operators allowed to do with data that was handed to them for a specific purpose? Or how can we ensure that individuals remain in control of their data, and what are their rights in this respect? What mechanisms are there to guarantee effective oversight and enforcement? And the last but not least on my list of questions for you here, if things go wrong, what sanctions and redress possibilities exist, both to address past non-compliance and to deter further violations in the future? These are common challenges for both Korea and the EU, and they go beyond the protection of personal data. In today's world, individuals leave digital traces in everything they do, and there is risk that they lose control over their self-image, their freedom to choose as consumers and as a society over the democratic process. Data protection is therefore directly linked to trust. Individuals who are afraid that others will not respect their privacy or fail to protect the security of their data quickly lose confidence and will be reluctant to share those data. Trust is thus a key resource of the digital economy. Looking at it this way, data protection is not just a core fundamental right, it is also good business practice. In fact, we strongly believe that privacy and economic growth can go hand in hand, and that the effective protection of personal data will help to unleash the full potential of the digital economy. And let me inform you that the EU is very intensively working on developing the digital single market as the only economic opportunity we have in the globalized world, or the strongest one. And let me also stress that the EU and the member states are at full speed now implementing the strategy 4.0, and we are investing also a lot in the artificial intelligence. Speaking about the opportunities and threats to privacy, we are certainly not alone in this. When we look around, we see a clear trend towards global convergence. This is true for Europe's neighborhood, but also for Latin America and parts of Africa. In the United States, a resolution was introduced in Senate last week that encourages companies to apply GDPR protections to US citizens. Last but not least, it is increasingly true for the Asia-Pacific region. One of the leading examples for strong privacy protection is, of course, Korea, and today's event is clear proof of this. Let me also recall the important recent development at international level. 2 weeks ago, 51 state parties agreed to modernize Convention 108, the only binding international treaty in the area of data protection. This includes countries from around the world, from South and Central America to Africa, the South Pacific, and also, of course, Europe. In its updated version, the Convention will further contribute to the convergence towards a set of high data protection standards. Korea is an observer to this Convention, and we hope one day will become a full party, thereby confirming its leading role in the Asian region. Joining this Convention would be another step towards convergence of our data protection systems, which share many similarities and are based on the same core principles. South Korea is a key trading and strategic partner for the EU. Since we concluded a trade agreement between the EU and Korea, our trade relations have gained a new dynamic. And this modern trade is underpinned by intense data flows. This is why I would like to reiterate the EU's commitment to reach an adequacy finding for Korea. our ongoing adequacy talks are and remain a priority for us. As our most ambitious tool to enable international data flows, an adequacy finding would allow the transfer of personal data from the EU to Korea without the need to fulfill any further requirements, and would therefore ensure the free flow of data in the same way as between two EU member states. This would give Korea business privileged access to the EU market and provide a competitive advantage compared to business operators in other parts of the world. Of course, for this to materialize, the adequacy decision must be sufficiently solid. Data protection is a fundamental right and is subject to strict political and judicial scrutiny, including from our European highest court. An adequacy finding therefore requires an in-depth assessment of a country's data protection framework, and this inevitably takes some time. And I believe we are making significant progress. It is this confidence that has brought me to Seoul, and I firmly believe that our dialogue, including the one today, will further contribute to improving our mutual understanding to the benefit of both our citizens and businesses. With this, I want to wish all of you a great fair with lots of interesting discussions. Thank you very much.